Yes, so we have started recording. Okay, I will share my screen again. So word by word meaning is done. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, S. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Purport: the kings and the commanders were to stand in front of the fighting soldiers. That was the system of actual fighting. The kings and commanders were not so-called presidents or prime ministers or ministers of defense as they are today. They would not stay at home while the poor soldiers and mercenaries were fighting face to face. This may be the regulation of modern democracy, but when actual democracy was prevailing, the monarchs were not cowards elected without consideration of qualification, as it was evident from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. All the executive heads of both the parties, like Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, Duryodhana, were not sleeping. All of them were actual participants in the fighting, which was selected to be executed at a place away from the civil residential quarters. This means that innocent citizens were immune from all effects of fighting between the rival royal parties. The citizens had no business in seeing what was going to happen during such fighting. They were to pay 1/4 of their income to the ruler, whether he be Arjuna or Duryodhana. All the commanders of the parties on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were standing face to face, and Arjuna saw them with great compassion and lamented that he was to kill his kinsman on the battlefield. For the sake of empire, he was not at all afraid of the giant military phalanx presented by Duryodhana, but as a merciful devotee of the Lord, renunciation of worldly things was natural for him, and thus he decided not to fight for the worldly possessions, but this was due to poor fund of knowledge. And therefore, it is said here that his intelligence became polluted. His intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was a devotee and constant companion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Apparently, Arjuna's intelligence became polluted because otherwise there would not have been a chance to deliver the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for the good of all polluted conditioned souls engaged in the material bondage by the conception of the false material body. The Bhagavad Gita was delivered to the conditioned souls of the world to deliver them from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul and to re-establish the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. Atma Vidya, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all concerned in all parts of the universe. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shrita Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shahe Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya cha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangom langayate grimit kapahatamam vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So Hare Krishna. So little interesting shloka as we see that Bhishma Deva is continuously, till the end of his life, he is giving one or the other references and a lot of information, and it is very, very useful and helpful for the devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness. And this also gives a lot of hope for a devotee who is practicing Krishna consciousness, because we get all this hope when we hear from the when we hear the some kind of analogies and the real experience from the devotee's life. So we become hopeful. Yes, it happened with somebody. So I think I'm also on the right path, and this is going to happen to me also. So we have a lot of guidance and reference. So here we see that Vishnu Pitama is very nicely explaining and mentioning this point. And this is a very, very crucial point here where it is mentioned that Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance. So that itself gives us the clue that Arjuna was not actually polluted by the intelligence, but he was actually, in playing a role wherein he can ask a lot of questions for us. And we see how merciful devotees are that way. Correct? You can remember the example of Parikshit Maharaj. You can remember the example of Arjuna. And not only them, there are other devotees who have gone beyond this. At least in the case of Parikshit and in the case of Arjuna, they voluntarily accepted a situation wherein they were looking like they do not have sufficient knowledge, but it was only for the benefit of the common people. And see, that was the best social service. So apart from Parikshit, apart from Arjuna, there were many other devotees who have accepted the position in a derogatory position where they were not shown a very high regards. We can remember the story of Jay and Vijay, when Jay and Vijay accepted the three lifetimes as an enemy of the Lord. So see, we know that they have the option to accept the seven lifetimes in the material world and come as the devotees of the Lord and go back to Lord. But then they didn't want to have the long separations, so they accepted three lifetimes. But in three lifetimes, the condition was they have to come as the greatest enemies of the Lord. So see, even they played that role. Like many times we also see in our temple, we have the role plays and skits which happen. I remember one of the skit, many years back, it was played by our little, children. And in that role, I remember Kundan Prabhu was there, Om was there, and Dayanand was there, and many devotees were there. And that skit was actually, directed and guided by Radha Mataji and Parabhakti Mataji. So they nicely planned this skit. And even I remember Radha Mataji's daughter, Surabhi. Even Surabhi added some more flavor by playing the sound of, Narsimhadev, the lion roaring sound in the end on the mic. So when we see that kind of act, the skit which was happening, in that somebody became Hiranyakashipu. So it is not that, Hiranyakashipu, the person is actually a Hiranyakashipu. I think Kundan Prabhu became Hiranyakashipu. But see, he's such a wonderful and nice devotee, always, always very, very setting the right and higher standards for other students. So this was a role which was played. And in the same manner, we see in Jay and Vijay, they were playing different roles because they wanted to bring the best out of the situation, which is going to create a hope for the devotees. When Hiranyakashipu was killed, when Hiranyaksh was killed, and when Ravana was killed. So those were the they were we can have pages and hours of discussion on that on those pastimes and understand what we should do in those situations and what we should do, how we should make the best use of our human life. So those are the greatest pastimes of the Lord, which bring a lot of joy in the heart of the devotee. And it also allows the Supreme Lord to appear. Supreme Lord can kill the demons very easily, but then he comes down on the material world just to give joy to the devotees. Like we see in the movies, when we see Rajnikant movie and Rajnikant comes on screen. So what happens to the fans? They start whistling, they start shouting, clapping, because they become very happy to see their hero. So in the same manner, when the devotees see, oh, Narsimhadev is coming, Varaha Dev is coming and killing Hiranyaksh. So like that, when they come, and what a entry the Lord makes, he comes out of the pillar, and in different kind of forms. Sometimes he comes having a head of a boar, and sometimes he comes with the head of a lion. And seeing this, it gives a lot of joy to the devotees' heart. They become very happy and cheerful because Lord is making an entry which is unexpected, which nobody would have thought. So it brings a joy in the heart of the devotees, and that is why you see these devotees, they are ready to play a role which in which they are not praised, but because it brings the joy in the heart of other devotees, and it brings the joy in for the Supreme Lord, so they accept that position, and they play this role. And that is how we see even Arjuna is very nicely playing this role here, where it is appearing that his intelligence is polluted, and he doesn't know that what decision he should be taking. And with this, it gives a gives some hints to us about how we should work, because Arjuna was trying to give up everything and run away, thinking that as a devotee, why should I be engaged in killing? I should better leave this, and because that's not the human life purpose of human life to fight. He wanted to just stay away and practice his sadhana. But then Sri Krishna brings out this essence that how you should work. I will come to that point a little later. But then before going to that point, we must understand the mood we should be in, and that is how the Lord is going to reveal. Even if we are polluted by ignorance, the Lord is not going to reveal until unless we surrender to the Supreme Lord. Like we see, Arjuna was giving various analogies, various thought process, saying that I shouldn't be fighting because of this. I shouldn't be fighting because of that. He kept giving many reasons and many excuses, right? I remember he said that if the men will be killed, what will happen to the women? There will be so many widows which will be generated, and then because of the widows, there will be there is a possibility that Varna Shankara will take place, and Varna Shankara will come, which means unethical population, which means that population will bring calamities to the society. What will happen to the tarpan of ancestors? They will not do. So that will again bring a lot of difficulties. Like that, he kept giving many reasons for not fighting, and he was thinking that he is very intelligent. But then when Krishna was just smiling, he asked Krishna that, my dear Lord, you are just smiling. So Krishna said, you keep on saying, I will say when I have to say. And he was still smiling. And then very first shloka which Krishna says, he says that you are talking like a intelligent man, but actually you are speaking like a foolish person. Whatever you're talking, it is very foolish. And then at that point of time, um, Arjuna understands this, and he recites this shloka. And in this shloka, we can understand the mood we should be in when we want to understand Srimad Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. So in 2.47, it is mentioned this karmanyavadikaristu ma phaleshu kadachana. Not 2.47, it is 2.7. So in 2.7, Arjuna is speaking Karpanya dosho upahata svabhava prachami tvam dharma sammoda cheta yash shreyas nishchitam rohitan me shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapannam. So Arjuna is saying that he is confused about his duty, and he has lost all his composure, and because of miserly weakness. And then he says that I am asking you to tell me what is good for me, what is best for me. And Arjuna says, I am your disciple and a soul surrendered onto you. And then he is asking for the instructions from the Supreme Lord. So, see, that is the way, that's the mood we should be in. That is the mode we should be in when we are willing to learn anything from the Supreme Lord. Even though Arjuna, played that role, and Krishna spoke the entire Bhagavad Gita, we may still not understand the Bhagavad Gita until unless we are in this mood wherein we are ready to listen what Krishna is saying. Like Prabhupada mentions in many purports, he says that there were so many Bhagavad Gitas, and what was the need of me to give another commentary? There were more than 600 commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. But then Prabhupada says that the Bhagavad Gitas which you refer, which were presented by non-devotees, they had taken the spirit of Bhagavad Gita out of it, which means to say they were talking about Bhagavad Gita without talking about Krishna. They removed Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, and then they are talking about Bhagavad Gita. How is it possible? And then Prabhupada wrote this commentaries wherein he explained in the introduction. He says that I'm giving this knowledge because only a person from the family can talk about the family. In the same manner, only a devotee can talk about the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, a non-devotee can get nothing out of Bhagavad Gita. And that is how in 2.7 it is mentioned, Arjuna is saying that I'm surrendering unto you, my dear Lord. Please instruct me what is good for me. and then Krishna starts speaking the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So that is one point which is very, very important. And I will quickly read few points from the purport. So Prabhupada is writing in the purport that in the initial days, the kings and commanders were to stand in front of the fighting soldiers. That was the system of actual fighting. The kings and commanders were not so-called presidents or ministers of defense as they are today. So see, that was the system. It was not that, they plan something out and they are sitting in a room and watching, the soldiers are carrying the cameras along with the gun, and they are entering, and the president is sitting in a room and he is watching everything, and he's giving instruction, do that, do this. He is not at the battlefield, but he's just passing instructions. So it is very difficult for those soldiers. Sometimes the soldiers get killed because they are waiting for the instructions, correct? Because they're on the war. So it is very difficult for them. But for the president who is sitting in a room and watching everything on the camera, it is very easy for them. But ancient days, it was not like that. These kings were the one who used to come in front and ready to face, the arrows or whatever it is, and they used to lead the fights. And when the king was killed, the battle was over. It was like that. So that was the system. So I was talking about how we can, get the knowledge out of Bhagavad Gita by surrendering on the Supreme Lord. And then I also read these four important shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, which talks about, um, how we should be, engaged in devotional service. So I'll just touch upon this point, and then we will proceed. Um, so Krishna is giving this, this information in Bhagavad Gita. He says in 10.8, he says, Aham sarvasya prabho matta sarva pravartate. So he's saying that I am the source of all the spiritual and material worlds, and everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Now, this is very important for us when we surrender on the Supreme Lord. It doesn't mean that we surrender by just our words, but we need to engage in the devotional service. And yesterday it was a sector Sunday feast in my house. So we see that when we give opportunities for the devotees to sing or do deity worship or do any other activities. So because the devotees are not doing regularly in their houses, so they make mistakes. They they misses out on something, and that is one very important thing which I want to mention here, that many times devotees, in Krishna consciousness think that they are just chanting and that is enough. There is no need of deity worship, you know. But if we do not engage ourselves in the deity worship, then how are we going to establish a connection between us and Supreme Lord? So the deity worship is very important. I mean, extremely important. And Prabhupada said that the morning program is very important, because without the morning program, you cannot go to office, and you cannot expect a very good consciousness, because we have not done a morning program, we have not worshipped the deities, we have not read Srimad Bhagavatam along with your family, you have not offered bhoga to the Supreme Lord, then there is no relationship established. And if the relationship is not established, then how can you remember the Supreme Lord throughout the day? Because most of us are working population here, and that is why I'm bringing this point. And in this shloka also, we see that Arjuna was, he was shown that he is not having the intelligence, but he had all the intelligence. So Arjuna wanted to run away, but Krishna says, you don't run away. He says, you do your duty and leave the rest on me. Karmanya vadikaristu ma phaleshu kadachana. He says, you do your duty, and results, you don't worry, because results you will get on the basis of your karma. If you have done something, because I mean, as per that, you will be getting your results out of it. So when we are going to office, it is important that we engage our mind in thinking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is not going to be possible if you are just chanting and thinking that, okay, I've done 16 rounds, now I can remember about the Lord. It is not going to happen. We have to do the morning program at any cost, in our houses before we leave for the offices. And if our office is very early in the morning, then we have another option to do the evening program. One program is important, wherein the family joins together and they pray the Supreme Lord, and they come in front of the deities. The deities are there to give the blessings to us. But if we don't show our beautiful face to them, then how can they give the blessings to us? So we have to see them when the morning darshan opens, the entire family should be there to greet the Supreme Lord. And that is how we develop a relationship. And so it is important that we do the Tulsi Puja, Guru Puja, and deity worship in our respective houses on a daily basis. Everybody should have a seva. You know, if you have two children, they should have service with your wife and with yourself. So it should be like that. Prabhupada said the house should be like a temple. So how is the house a temple when we are doing everything for ourselves and nothing for the Supreme Lord? And it is not a blind faith that okay, I have to do this. No, Krishna says that if you are connecting with me, then you're going to be happy. So as a father, as a husband, if you want to bring happiness to your family, then you have to engage your entire family in Krishna consciousness and in the service of the Lord. Otherwise, you will not be happy, and even they will not be happy. Correct? Lord says, Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwaram 5.29. He says clearly, if you want peace, then you better connect with me. So it is very important that we engage in the deity worship. And when we are engaging in the deity worship early in the morning, then when we go to office, then we are going to think about the Supreme Lord throughout. Correct? Bhagavad Gita 9.14 says that Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Lord is saying always, not only in the morning, not only in the evening. He says always chant my glories. And then he gives the assurance. I think in the last part he says that if you are chanting my glories and you are bowing in front of me, then you can worship me with devotion. Otherwise, you cannot worship me with devotion. So everything is connected. Our morning program is connected with our thinking. Because if we don't see the Lord, we don't hear about the Lord, we don't meet the devotees, and how can we think about the Supreme Lord? We can think only in the nonsense. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if we are not doing all these things, then we are going to only think about two things. One is about women, and the second thing is about money. That's it. So with these thoughts, we will never be able to practice the devotion. So it is important that if you want Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, then it is important that we do our morning deity worship and Tulsi Puja and everything very, very carefully and properly with full focus and attention, greeting the Lord. Remember, we are in the stage of Anartha Nirvritti. Even if we are not getting the bhava, even if we are not getting the love, that's okay. I mean, that is going to come after a long stage. We have so many things in place. We have Anartha Nirvritti, we have Nishtha, Ruchi, Bhava, and then Krishna Prema. So we cannot expect that, okay, I'm not getting Krishna Prema, so I think I should not do it. We have to do the first step, which is Anartha Nirvritti. And that Anartha Nirvritti is when we are chanting 16 rounds, when we are engaging in the service of the Lord, when we are doing our Tulsi Puja. So these rules we have to follow properly. When we are following for regulatory principles, then we are able to we will be able to go to the next step. And then we can expect Ruchi, Nishtha, and Bhava, and then Krishna Prema. So everything is connected. And I was hearing one of the lecture of Amrendra Das Prabhu. So I will end with this point. So Amrendra Das Prabhu, somebody asked him in Delhi that Prabhuji, because I am so much interested in Krishna consciousness, I don't feel like going to office. Going to office seems to be very stupid to me. And then Amrendra Prabhu explained very nicely. And even I had this doubt, a few years back, I was also thinking I was not getting any interest in office because I was finding office very, very boring and something which is taking me away from Krishna consciousness. Then I remember, in Mathurapati Prabhu's house, one devotee was there. His name is Rathyatra Prabhuji. So, we just happened to talk and he asked me about my work. So I said, I'm not having that much interest. Then he told me, no, Prabhu, you should not be like this. A devotee should be very, very focused in his job. And because the job is a service. So I started thinking it gave me a different dimension of job is a service. And then when I heard the lecture of Amrendra Prabhu, it became all the more clear because Amrendra Prabhu was mentioning that, when he was working, so how he used to utilize his time in remembering the Supreme Lord. So in between, he says sometimes in office we do some monotonous activities wherein the thought process thinking is not required. So he used to chant during that point of time and, copying this data here, pasting this data here. That doesn't require much of intelligence. So if you're doing something like that, we can chant more and more. And then he said, even if you are doing some difficult task, what you can do, you can chant Hare Krishna after every 10 minutes. So if you chant 10 after 10 minutes, in 1 hour, you're going to chant 6 times. And in 8 hours, you're going to chant 8 6 48 times. And then, in the break, if you chant a little more, then your 1 round is done. So in the midst of a lot of work, also you can chant at least one round. And then what I do in my office, when I'm walking from one place to another place, I ensure on my counter I chant at least 5 times, 10 times. So throughout the day I keep chanting. And of course, these are my extra rounds which I don't mention anywhere. But yes, this is the part of Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Always thinking Krishna, always remembering Krishna, and then we can expect that relationship development with the Lord, and then we can understand the points which Krishna is explaining. See, Lord is taking so much of risk. He is sending his devotees, the most perfect devotees in the material world. When Srila Prabhupada came, when Guru Maharaj came, these are all the powerful and eternal associates of the Supreme Lord. And see, the Lord is taking such risk. He is sending these devotees in the material world. They do not come by like us. When we fall down, we come to material world. But Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj are, and other Vaishnavas, they are not such devotees who are coming to the material world because of fall down. They are here just to help us, right? And even Krishna is coming many times, to the material world. What is the need of Krishna to come here? What is the need of Lord Sri Ram to come into this material world and face all the difficulties? He is coming for all of us. He is coming to just to show us the example. See, we would have never thought, never seen such kind of trainer who takes all the difficulties just to train the devotees properly, correct? Train the people properly. So Krishna comes in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he takes sannyas at the age of 24, correct? And he is preaching the glories of the Supreme Lord. He is showing how we should actually worship the Supreme Lord. He is fainting when he is going in front of the deities. And what happens to us? What happens to other people? They go in front of the deities and they see the deities and they are talking to each other. What is happening with you? How are you? How is everything? So Supreme Lord is present in front of us. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he goes in front of the Supreme Lord, he faints because he is seeing the Supreme Lord there. But because we are not seeing the Supreme Lord, we are not having that faith. So the reciprocation is similar. Krishna says, ye yatha mam prapadyante. Whatever bhava you come in front of me, I'm going to give you that. If you think that Krishna is the bad person, so I'm going to create a situation where your thought process becomes perfect. If you are thinking Krishna is the supreme personality, then I'm going to reciprocate in the same manner. If you think Krishna, you're having a lot of gratitude towards Krishna and thanking Krishna and surrendering on to the Supreme Lord, then Krishna is going to make choices on our behalf, and he's going to take charge of our life. So we have to decide what prayer we want and how we need to pray and how we need to progress in Krishna consciousness. And then these wonderful examples and these efforts which the devotees have taken in the past, like Parikshit Maharaj had all the powers to counteract the curse, but he accepted because he wanted the Kali to enter, because in the Kali Yuga, the great benefit, the greatest boon is that we can achieve the perfection just by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So he accepted the death also. Of course, even before Takshak snake could touch Parikshit Maharaj, he was taken care by the Lord and he had left his body. So nothing happened to him. He was peaceful. And similarly, we see Arjuna's example. Lord took charge of Arjuna, and then in the end we see how Arjuna was able to cross through all the Nisayans. He was able to easily overcome the forefront of knowledge which was displayed. And along with Arjuna, there are so many demigods. In the end, Prabhupada is mentioning it was for the total universe. So the entire universe benefited out of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But the irony is that nowadays, if you ask somebody about Bhagavad Gita and you ask them how many shlokas are there in Bhagavad Gita, so there you will be puzzled. You can try in your offices, go to your office and ask how many shlokas are there in Bhagavad Gita. But what you can do, you can ask them first, do you believe in Bhagavad Gita? Some Hindu people, they'll say, yeah, we believe in Bhagavad Gita. And then you say, how many shlokas are there in Bhagavad Gita? So they will not know how many shlokas are there. Then what to talk about the chapters in Bhagavad Gita? So they do not know this. Just for the namesake, they're saying, okay, we are the followers. I remember in my office, there was a lady who had a program. She was from Assam. And they had a program in the weekend wherein they kept Bhagavad Gita on an altar and they were worshipping Bhagavad Gita. So I asked this question to her that, do you know how many shlokas are there in Bhagavad Gita? So she had no clue. Then what to talk about the teachings? Then I told her one thing that, worshipping is good, but you also read Bhagavad Gita. And if you want, I can bring one nice Bhagavad Gita with proper commentary and everything, which is Bhagavad Gita as it is. And then you can read Bhagavad Gita and gain from it, because it is the manual of life. And that way, I could give some insights to her. But if you see, you talk about Bollywood, like we were having this, in my office when we have this small spiritual discussion. So we have these things, we discuss few points. So I asked them, I sang a Bollywood song, and I asked them the second line. Everybody was, well versed with the second line. So I told them, that you are very, very fluent with the Bollywood songs. If I sing one song of Shah Rukh Khan, then you will sing the other line very, very clearly, correct? Even if it is an old song. But if I talk about one shloka patram pushpam phalam toyam, then the next line is blank. You do not know. First of all, you don't know that patram pushpam phalam toyam is also there in Bhagavad Gita. Max to max, they will know only one shloka, which is karmanyavadikarastu, which was there in Mahabharata long time back. So that also the first line. They do not know much. Now, why I'm saying this point is this, because we are the people who go to corporate. We know how the corporate world works, and so it is the greatest opportunity with us, people who are the working population, because they know the correct status of the people outside, and then they can accordingly customize and provide present this knowledge to them. Because I heard one lecture of Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj was saying that it is important that the devotees should know how to present this transcendental knowledge. We cannot present the same manner in front of everyone. We have to see the level of the person, and then accordingly we have to present this knowledge so that they take this knowledge. In the same manner, Guru Maharaj talks about the Matajis who are at home. In a recent class which I heard from temple president, he was mentioning that they should be like cats in the house, which means fully supporting husband who is practicing Krishna consciousness. But when they go out, they should be like tigress, lioness, who are very, very powerful in preaching, and they can preach in any situation. When they go for purchasing vegetable, when they meet anybody outside, they can preach the glories of the Supreme Lord, and then they can take care of the children in the family and make them a powerful Vaishnavas and devotees. So everybody has a role to play. Children have role to play. Parents have role to play. Matajis have role to play. When we are, and we can do this only when we are following these footsteps of these wonderful devotees like Arjuna, like Parikshit Maharaj, like other devotees. We see Dhruv Maharaj, like Prahlad Maharaj. So we sing about Prahlad Maharaj and Narasimhadev, but hardly I used to focus on Prahlad Maharaj, even though he has a beautiful deity form, but I was not focusing so much. But when I read in Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Narasimhadev, he's mentioning, I have so many devotees, my dear Prahlad, but you are the best among them. And then Prabhupada is, elaborating in the purport. He says that he tells there are 12 Mahajans, and then he gives some Mahajan's name also, Brahmaji, Lord Shiva, Yamraj. And then Prabhupada says, among them, the best was Prahlad. And then I remember, okay, Prahlad is the best devotee. So from then onwards, when I go to the temple, I focus on Prahlad Maharaj first, and then I focus on Narasimhadev, because he is the best devotees. And Narasimhadev is saying in 7th canto, he says, I want all my devotees to learn from the example of Prahlad and become like Prahlad. And it is Prahlad only who says that we should not waste our life. He says, beginning 20 years are wasted in playing like a child, and then the last 20 years of lifetime are wasted in the old age and disease, and then mid years are wasted in sleeping and eating. Then actually we do not have much time to practice Krishna consciousness. So I will take a pause here. Today we have discussed about Arjuna, and who was actually not bewildered. He was just playing a role. And then we talked about the work, how we should do our work, and how we can make our work as a Krishna conscious duty, as a service. And then in the end, we talked about how everybody has a role to play in Krishna consciousness. So with this, I will take a pause here. If I have committed a mistake,